Hi everyone, my name is Hannah Mandarin and I'm the president of the TED Ed Club at HHS. In the midst of everything going on in the world right now, and on behalf of the TED Ed Club, I wanted to thank all first responders and all people on the front lines for all the tremendous heroic work they are doing. We are all going through a difficult time right now, but it is heartwarming to know we have such inspiring people pushing through to do all that they can. So thank you for giving your time to help others in this period of panic. I hope this video finds you and your families healthy and safe. I know there have been a lot of disappointments in the world with the inability to be with loved ones and the cancellation of such important events. Personally, I've been having a hard time knowing I won't be able to have a normal graduation along with the rest of the class of 2020 and to be missing some of my senior year. But it is comforting knowing that we are all going through it together. I'm saddened to know I won't be able to return to my high school as a student, but this school has given me so many experiences that I will never forget. One experience is being a part of the TED Ed Club. This club is a community of warmth, respect, and positivity. Our mission has 5 components. Discover yourself and your passions, cultivate leadership and confidence, leave meetings inspired and able to inspire others, conceive an idea and convey it, and share your stories. Being able to lead this mission has been a journey of self-discovery that I could not have taken with other people in this club. I have met so many wonderful people who are immensely unique and have the ability to accomplish such great things in their futures. With the conversations and lessons I've had, I have made so many meaningful connections with people that I never would have expected to. TED Ed has pushed me to step outside of my comfort zone and discover myself and my own passions. TED Ed has given me a platform to help others and to self-meditate to become the best version of myself. But this would not have been possible without Mrs. Blevins. She is an amazing mentor who I am glad to have met. She has helped me to become who I am today, and I cannot imagine doing any of this without her. Her positivity, her realness, her passion, her warmth has infiltrated this club, and it is evident in the growth of the members. So I wanted to give her and all her hard work a thanks to making this club what it is today, especially for personally inspiring me to continue doing what I love and for being such a bright light in my life. Unfortunately, due to COVID-19, our TED Ed Club has had to cancel our annual Borotalks event, where our members give speeches that they have worked on throughout the year. So as a Corona special, we've decided to bring these speeches to the public and make this video to share our stories. First, I would like to introduce Anika Sinha, who will be speaking about what our education system is missing.
Imagine young 10-year-old me walking through the streets of Turkey, very excited, looking at all the knick-knack shops, all the food stands, all of the culturally diverse people bustling past me, eager to get to their destinations. But I was a young girl and I was a tourist in a whole other continent, so I was fascinated by every little single thing. So I was just soaking it all in, and then I see this old lady sitting on the cobblestone streets, wearing this tattered white dress and no shoes. Please, she whispered. Although I was just 10, I could tell that she was begging for food, money, clothes, anything. But I broke our silent conversation with my eyes and I ran away. And I just caught up with my family and I asked my dad for these street vendor nuts, and we just went on with our vacation, and I was blissfully ignorant. I later found out that she was a Syrian refugee. So let's fast forward to now. This year, in my 10th grade US history course, we were meant to learn the 3 branches of government: legislative, executive, and judicial. Instead, we landed on the topic of Trump's impeachment and the 2020 elections. I was so fascinated by everything my history teacher was telling us, but at the end of the period, he mumbled to himself, "Great, now I'm behind a day." Because according to the curriculum, we should have learned the 3 branches of government. Instead, we learned about Trump's impeachment. So, what's the common thread? Was it A, current events, B, my ignorance, C, the education system, or D, all of the above? If you chose D, congratulations, you're correct. Your prize is listening to the problems that we as students face every single day due to the exclusion of current events as being part of our core curriculum. I mean, I get it though. It's so hard to add something else to the mix because we condense so much information into 12 years. But it's vital that we learn about current events. We as students need guidance and encouragement to be upstanding members of society, and we need to learn about the injustices and the current events. But all of the Common Core courses contain so much information, it seems virtually impossible to add something else. As a teenager on social media, I learned more about the Iranian and United States conflict through the World War III memes online, rather than in my own school. That's not okay. The pressing issue wasn't mentioned once in class. I understand that it's so hard to add something else, but my courses couldn't even lean away from their topics just for a few minutes to talk about what was going on at the moment. Next year, I want to take US government and politics, but I can't because according to my graduation requirements, I have to take a second year of US history. I understand that US history is very important, but I also understand that I am not going to go down that career path. So shouldn't I have the opportunity to take charge of my own education? I believe that I should be able to take US government and politics, but it's not stressed as much as history, so I can't next year. Aren't current events just as important as history and English and science and math? It may seem impossible, but it's vital that the future generations learn about the injustices that we face every single day, such as war, poverty, corruption, hunger, by mentioning it just a couple times when we're younger and then going more in depth as we grow older. It may seem impossible, but if we don't, we're not only harming ourselves, but we're harming our community and the future generations. There's a war going on in the Middle East right now. That woman on the cobblestone street in Turkey that I walked past was a Syrian refugee. I was so close to her, and I was so close to death and destruction. I walked right past her, unaware that I was able to help her, that my donation could have helped her more than I could have ever imagined. Maybe if my school taught me about everything that the world was struggling with, I could have done something. I could have given her my street vendor nuts or my jacket, but my education failed me. It fostered the ignorance that led me to walk away.
Next, we have Dia Patel with a speech about how pressure transformed her.
It's hard to believe that just a couple months ago we were hanging out with our friends, going to class, and going to practice. While we may miss these activities, one thing that we don't miss is the pressure that we felt going in to take tests, meeting deadlines, and going in for interviews. For me, this feeling of pressure was most prevalent on the softball field as a softball pitcher. And while I don't have my season this year, I've been able to reflect and realize that the pressure helped me perform better. When I'm standing on the mound, I feel 1,000 bright lights shining at my face and what feels like an entire major league stadium staring at me. People often ask, why do you play a position that puts you in the spotlight? Well, softball in and of itself is such a mental game. The decisions we make in a split second, such as where am I throwing the ball or what base am I running to, greatly determine the outcome of the game. And playing the position of pitcher on top of that puts you in the spotlight. The reason I chose to become a pitcher was because it blends my interests in softball and science. From a young age, I loved learning how I could use resistance from the ground to choose the direction of my pitch, and how the speed of my windmill would determine the velocity of the pitch. So from a young age, while I had the physical component of the game figured out, I was still trying to figure out how to approach the mental component. I specifically remember one game from my 8th grade season. I hadn't gotten the opportunity to pitch in the 7th grade season, so I worked hard all year, and when it was the 3rd game of the 8th grade season, my coach gave me the opportunity to pitch. I was so excited that I immediately ran and grabbed a catcher. While I was warming up, however, negative thoughts began to flood into my mind. I began asking myself, what if I perform poorly? What if I walked batters? And as you may have guessed, that's exactly what happened. In the top of the first inning, I walked 4 batters, and out of the corner of my eye, I could see the coach slamming down his book and yelling at other pitchers to go warm up. And this only got in my head even more. So obviously, I was taken out of the game after that inning, but looking back, being in the spotlight and performing well at the same time was difficult for me to do. After that game, I became determined to change my mindset so I could retain positive thoughts and eliminate negative thoughts. One way that I went about doing this was by telling myself what to do instead of telling myself what not to do. For example, instead of telling myself, don't collapse your back foot, I would tell myself I would ask myself, how hard can I drive off of my back foot? When I was telling myself what not to do, I was being critical of myself and from the beginning planting seeds of doubt into my mind. When I was telling myself what to do, it was in general a more productive mindset and one that allowed me to envision success. When it came to game time, before I stepped on the mound, I would take a deep breath, and once I stepped on the mound, I would look at the catcher's sign. After I got the sign, I would only focus my eyes on one point on the catcher's glove, and I wouldn't move my eyes until I pitched the ball. So as I began practicing this mindset for about a year, I began to fall into a rhythm that allowed me to trust my mechanics and perform well once again. The greatest lesson that I've learned from my experience is that there's a way to channel the pressure we feel to our benefit. So when quarantine ends and we are able to step back into the classrooms, back on the sports fields, remember that the pressure you feel in any situation can be used to help you and can be used to your benefit.
Next up, we have Sonia Goel speaking on the lessons of quarantine.
I think it would be almost foolish not to discuss the current situation and how it affects us as individuals, our academic and occupational careers, and the world as a whole. The rapid spread of COVID-19 had made us adjust to a world of masks, hand sanitizers, and finishing an entire Netflix series within a day. The work meetings are not conducted unless deemed important, and we only Zoom call people if we have motivation to brush your hair or wash our face. This new norm is scary, but refreshing to others. With that being said, I do think that we can say that we learned a few things that help accepting this new way of life a little better. For me, I'll know I miss the quality family time every night and playing our favorite board game. We play on repeat until a family fight breaks out. Being surrounded by my family has taught me that it's important to make family time like this. Sometimes we forget to make time for others that's been there for us from the beginning. Throughout the course of quarantine, I would FaceTime my friends all the time. I would only talk to the ones that I have a true friendship with. I started to isolate myself or drift away from the fake ones. Quarantine has made me realize that I don't need fake friends, and I'm content with the ones I have. I will only be friends with the ones that mean well to me and not the ones that try to bring me down. I'll apply this in the future and make sure I have time for the true friends. The pandemic definitely changed the way of occupational careers for many people. Doctors and nurses are on the front lines trying to help people recover or find a cure to COVID-19. Not only doctors and nurses are important, but policemen, firefighters, and even store clerks are risking their own health to serve us. All these occupations deserve the same honor and level of importance. They are equally important, and people in the future should treat these jobs equally because they have a huge impact in our lives. Teachers are also another career that had to do a full 180 during this pandemic. Having to be a teacher during this time is very tough. Teachers had to quickly change their assignments and make sure their students are learning in quarantine. I applaud all these coronavirus heroes. Thank you. As the world as a whole, we learned that we are stronger than we believe. Working together and helping each other make us more powerful each day we conquer together. Unity helps us reassure others are there for us when we need them. I think the takeaway here is gratitude. Gratitude for those who've been in our lives, who've stayed part of the Zoom calls and the social distancing hangouts. Gratitude for those essential workers and the non-essential roles that still play a part in our life. The last thing is gratitude for the boundaryless lives we once led, and gratitude for knowing that we can return to them at some point. Thank you. Remember to be grateful.
Next, we have Kylie Chen speaking about the overlooked differences between humans and trees.
Let's talk about trees. Yeah, I know how weird it is for me to start with that, because usually when I say that to someone, I can see their eyes widen in astonished fear as they decide whether to initiate their fight or flight response against me. I guess most people just don't really take the time out to really appreciate forests and their dendritic inhabitants, but I think we should. Most of my early memories are deeply rooted in my love of trees, pun intended. As a toddler, my sister and I used to build little houses out of sticks and leaves and lean them against the trees in our backyard. And when I turned 4, I was devastated to learn that we'd be moving from our house and leaving the trees that I love so much behind. But I felt so relieved when I saw the oak in our new backyard and the maple in our new front yard. As an elementary student, I was very shy and I was always afraid that I was behind my peers. But when I went home, I set myself to climb the tree in our front yard. At first, I could barely pull myself up, but I kept trying, and when I finally made it to the top, the huge sense of pride that I felt made me realize that I have strengths as well. Eventually, I also used trees to fight my social anxieties, since I used to freeze up and panic whenever I had to speak in front of a group. But then I started picturing tall, sturdy trees firmly rooted into the ground, with water flowing up through their trunks. My words became like water as I gathered strength from this vision. Even though my life would continue to change, trees have always been a constant. Though my understanding of them was limited to just poles in the ground that sucked up water and purified our air and made our tools and our houses and helped us improve. Any kind of greater complexity to these plants just seemed ridiculous to me once I got older. I thought I was being scientifically aware. I couldn't have been more wrong. I remember I saw an image of a ghostly white bush in the middle of a forest, and I learned that this tree, a California albino redwood tree, lacked chlorophyll and couldn't perform photosynthesis, so in order to survive, it grew into the roots of healthy redwood trees and absorbed their sugar. University of California PhD candidate and researcher Zane Moore discovered that these albino trees also absorbed a higher concentration of toxins. So essentially, healthy and albino redwoods were making an even exchange. Healthy trees gave sugar, and albino trees made the soil safer. I mean, when I thought of this, I immediately thought about my sister, because she always would take care of me and make me food and buy me gifts, and I just felt like I was undeserving since she did so much and I did so little. But when people would pick on her, I would unleash fury. And when she was upset, I would cheer her up with my weird antics. She helped me and I helped her. But trees did this as well. Before, I had no idea that plants could even willingly exchange nutrients, so I did more research about it. Some of you may have already heard about the mycorrhizal network, which is basically when the finest tree roots link with fungal filaments in order to exchange nutrients. Professor Suzanne Simard of the University of British Columbia in Vancouver describes how mother trees, the oldest trees with the most fungal links, can actually suckle their younger neighbors when they need extra nutrients. Trees can also sense the attacks from predators and send electrical impulses through this network to warn other trees or release airborne distress chemicals that other trees can eavesdrop on. Forester Peter Wolovin also describes how the trees in his natural forest will decrease the temperature by 3 degrees Celsius in order to maintain an optimal environment where trees can survive. Trees aren't just solitary beings. that try to outgrow and kill each other, but they can act as a superorganism to maintain an environment in which they can survive. Thinking about this made me think about my family, because we all have different personalities and different passions and talents and interests, but we still can contribute a different thing to our little unit, and we still love each other. And it was because of my family that I felt safe, even as that shy elementary student, to be myself and goof off at home. And it was that constant and that safeness that let me grow to be my own person and eventually be myself outside as well. After learning about this, I realized that trees are just as capable of coexistence. When I read about this and more, I realized that I was being dismissive in ways I didn't even realize. Trees are very useful, but they're also amazing as their own species. I realize now that I have to be very careful to not assume anything unless I make an active effort to learn about it. Of course, there's still a debate about whether trees are conscious sentient beings or if they're just mechanisms that respond to hormones and stimuli, but either way, they have a way more active, engaged, and shared life than I could have imagined. And although I'm part of a larger system that I'll never fully understand, no matter how vast and complicated life and the world may be, I know that there are connections that will make that bigger system a part of me.
The next speech is by Mahati Salapu. She will be speaking about the difference between loneliness and being alone, and will also be breaking down the good and bad in both.
If you ask my friends to describe me, they may say that I'm quiet and kind of reserved. That is true. I typically don't speak out so much, and I usually prefer to keep things to myself. I don't really have a lot of friends, probably about 3 or 4 close ones. I'm fine with that, because first of all, those are people I trusted, and second of all, I was always a bit of an introvert. I prefer to be alone compared to being with people. Some of my peers did not really like that about me, saying that being alone isn't good for a person, and that an introvert should change. Many people today assume that being alone is depressing or bad. It's really not if that's how you prefer to be. Sometimes being alone could relieve stress, or it could give you more space to work. I'm sure a lot of you have come home one day from school or work feeling really stressed about life or something that's going on, and I'm pretty sure that you would prefer to be alone and refreshed. I'm really sure that you don't want a bunch of people bursting in and randomly talking to you. That would be pretty overwhelming. I noticed that many people, including parents and friends, have said that being alone isn't the right thing to do and simply makes someone more depressed. But I completely disagree with this. Sometimes being alone and with your thoughts can really help with reflecting and working on yourself. And it's really relaxing to take time off for yourself and do something that you love, especially during these stressful times. Alongside this, many people have also known the term of being lonely. Being alone and being lonely may seem similar because they both revolve around having no one around you. However, being lonely is completely different and something a person does not want to experience in their life. Being lonely is more of an emotional idea rather than a physical one. If you are alone, there might not be a person with you physically, but that doesn't mean that you don't have a good social life. When you're lonely, you may feel alone, like no one is there for you emotionally. Unlike being alone, you could be surrounded by a party of people and still feel lonely. This is because the feeling is dependent on how others act towards you or how you're feeling yourself, not just on the number of people you know. For example, if there are people that ignore you or treat you badly, you would feel like no one is there, or as if you're alone even when there are people with you. Don't underestimate the power of loneliness. It may seem to have little impact, but as time passes on, this loneliness can grow into something concerning. It has the ability to change one's perception of the world and of themselves. It can decrease self-esteem, break friendships, and do so much more. A person who feels lonely needs someone to be there for them, and needs someone to show that they care. So if you know someone who feels lonely, please be there to support them. Show that you care and be there to listen. Remember, even one person can make a difference, and one person is enough to impact someone's life. I believe that we can all be that person. Right now, this pandemic has caused us all to be separated from our friends and family, and the feeling of loneliness has affected a lot of us. Just know that being alone and enjoying some hobbies isn't a bad thing. It's a great way to cope and de-stress from everything that's going on.
Next, we have Gary Nair addressing the tough conversations about religion and politics.
When you first meet someone, there are 2 things you aren't supposed to talk about: religion and politics. We tend to not talk about these 2 topics because they're seen as polarizing and aren't necessarily what most people want to speak about when they first meet someone. Especially in the current political and social climate, the world is more polarized than ever before. This may be true, but in my experience, talking with people with opposing viewpoints to me has helped me grow as a person and become more empathetic. Our opinions are based on our life experience and what we have learned from those around us. Because we all have different experiences, that leads us to having different outlooks on life. Regardless of how similar two people are, their lives and values are different. Often, people with different experiences disagree with each other on both social and personal issues. The real question is it possible for these people to have a conversation about controversial topics and still be able to maintain their relationships? I think all of us have heard stories about what happens when you bring up politics during Thanksgiving. People have broken friendships that have lasted years, distanced themselves from family members over different political views. Why is this? I think that it's partially because of how we talk about these things. Often our opinions on controversial topics are related to our morals and who we are as people. When someone challenges our thinking, we don't always get mad about what they are saying, but the fact that they're attacking us. We confuse our opinions with our emotions. We forget that they're challenging our beliefs and not our person. In order to have meaningful conversations, we have to be able to separate the two. Now, for a lot of people, religion and politics are things that are personal to them, and not really something that they're willing to share with others. And honestly, I think it's safe to say that for most of my life, I didn't have conversations about these topics with outside of people from my immediate family. Even though religion and politics may be personal to an individual, our society places value in our religion and our position in politics. The conversation I've had with people close to me doesn't necessarily make me change my opinion on them, but it helps me understand who they are. This past Thanksgiving, I had my entire family over, and we did the usual festivities, which in my family consists of eating food, playing charades, and mafia. And at first, I expected a normal Thanksgiving and Black Friday, full of family and togetherness. Anyone that knows me really well knows that I love Thanksgiving, and it's my favorite holiday. And the food was great. But more than that, I love seeing everyone after a long time and being able to spend some quality time with them. To say the least, I got to spend time with my family. And we played all the usual games, but towards the night, we got into a really deep philosophical conversation, ranging from politics to religion, to what we think happens when we die. We were all sitting on my kitchen floor, ages ranging from 15 to 55, and notably, we all had different ideas on these topics. Some of us believed that religion was created to control and restrict our human nature, and others believed that religion instilled morals in people and positively affected their life. Every single one of us had a different perspective depending on our age and life experiences, and when we started to discuss these topics, what you imagined would happen did. People got frustrated, angry, and even stormed out. Within a few minutes of conversing, everyone's mood turned sour. Now, you must be wondering why I would tell you this story if the entire premise of my speech is about having conversations about these topics. The truth is, none of this happened. In reality, everyone had an opinion and shared how they came to that conclusion and what caused them to invest in their beliefs, whether that was something that they were taught as kids or simply based on what had happened to them throughout their life. What was important is that we were able to have these conversations. We not only expressed our thoughts, but how we came to that thought. Don't get me wrong, there were arguments and people got heated, but in the end, we were able to have a meaningful, civil conversation. And it is possible, I promise you. The Today Show had an episode where they brought a mass shooting survivor and a member of the NRA to talk about gun control. These are people on two opposite sides of the spectrum, and typically when you see these two groups interact, in the media, they are at each other's throats. But these two people were able to have a courteous conversation because they were willing to listen to each other and not cloud their arguments with emotion. This forced them not only to see their side, but recognize the similarities between both of their sides. Too often we hear that we aren't supposed to talk about things like religion and politics, especially to our friends and our family. What I don't understand is these people are supposed to be the people that are closest to you, and you can't really get to know a certain person until you're aware of their stance on and opinions on certain polarizing topics. I'll be honest, the people that were sitting on my kitchen floor that day are people I've known my entire life. But until that point, I didn't know that they had opinions on some of these topics, or even how strongly they believed in an issue. Having these conversations were relieving to me. We tend to walk on eggshells around each other, and being able to converse freely is liberating. The most that I got out of that conversation wasn't the fact that the people around me had different viewpoints, but how they came to those realizations and how their experiences shaped them to the people that they are today. The reason why we should be talking openly about politics and religion and other subjects like it is not because it's meant to polarize people, but give each other a window into each other's lives, to promote understanding and empathy with one another. And in order to be able to do that, we need to separate ourselves and our opinions from each other. It's possible to have conversations about these topics if we are willing to not only express our opinions, but try and see the reason in other people's opinions. And only if we have these conversations and express our inner thoughts will we be able to have a more unified and empathetic society. Thank you.
Now we have Abhigya Gupta on what does it really mean to be a leader.
As kids, our parents, teachers, and coaches are our mentors, the people we look up to, the people who inspire us. They open our eyes to new perspectives and teach us their way of life. We see them as leaders. I mean, that's what a leader is, right? Someone who has their own idea and diverges from what other people are doing. We've learned that a leader is someone who creates their own footprints and shows others a new way. We're taught that we should not try to be like others, but strive to follow our own path. I mean, when I tell my mom that my friend is going to the mall, she never fails to ask, if your friend is about to jump off a cliff, do you jump too? This cliche statement that everyone has heard from their parents at one point or another motivates us to be our own person. But there's a huge flaw with this theory. How am I supposed to be a leader without being a follower? I know that sounds crazy. So in other words, if I don't learn from the people around me, how will I find out who I truly am? My grandfather is a perfect example of this contradiction. In India, he spent his time going to school like most kids do. However, when he got to our age and it was time to enroll him into a college, his dad refused. My great-grandfather demanded that he must go into the family business and forget about college. Fortunately, my grandpa was stubborn and knew that a college education would be the best for him. He spent all of his life seeing all his siblings and all his cousins quit school and go into the family business. And at that point, something clicked in him. His family put an immense amount of pressure on him to do what was considered the norm. However, he knew that college would open the door to a multitude of opportunities, with which he could do something meaningful with his life. His mother convinced him that he should follow what he believes is right, and helped him sneak out of the house at night to go study under street lamps. He quite literally taught himself, and he was able to succeed. All on his own, he went from sneaking out in the middle of the night to earning an education to securing a senior position in his company. He built his family and his future from the ground up, without anyone's help. My grandpa is a leader. Even though he doesn't follow the stereotypical image of a leader who's in charge of a large crowd or leading a protest, I'd still consider him a leader. After years of being pushed to continue the family business, my grandpa set his mind to his own path. His personal rally was against his father and a fight for his education. He fought for his passion and his mission. As my grandfather was growing up, he followed what his family told him to do and grew up in a household where his elders controlled his future. However, as he began to mature, he realized that a lot of his family members had the potential to do something else with their lives. They missed out on a lot of opportunities by not furthering their education. This motivated him to control his own future and create his own path. When I think about this in terms of high school, it seems as though our problems are relatively tiny. It leaves me thinking, how am I supposed to be a leader? How do I continue my grandfather's legacy? Our problem is the amount of pressure put on us to be a leader at this point of time. It's somewhat paradoxical if you think about it. People tell you to be a leader, but you can't truly be a leader if you can't create our own path, because we're not put in a situation where there needs to be a change. We're all in the same boat. We have the opportunities, but the opportunities we have are little to none. Essentially, I'm saying that society tells us to be leaders and to find our own path. But the key part that's missing in that piece of advice is that we cannot all be leaders at the same time. Just like we grow at different rates, we all become leaders at different points in our lives. We need time to find our purpose, and asking us this heavy question when we're at the age of coming to terms with the world and just beginning to scratch the surface for who we want to be is pointless. Through a lot of experiences, I have come to realize that I have a passion for working with kids. They are innocent and impressionable. Children have their whole lives in front of them, but have not truly been exposed to the world just yet. This results in an unimaginable amount of hope, curiosity, and ambition. Special Olympics is a wonderful organization that I'm part of, which focuses on working with special needs kids. Working with the kids brings out another side of me, a side which I really want to incorporate into my career. Working with kids, I realize that we have the potential to influence a child's life. We are the mentors and adults that these children will look up to and think of as they grow up. When you think of doctors, you think of assisting adult patients. However, being a neonatal pediatrician is my own personal take on diverging from the crowd. In my own way, I'm being my own leader by combining my passions and paving my own path. Essentially, being a leader is not only leading people, and I think that's what so many people have trouble understanding. Being a leader can simply be finding your own path and sticking with it. Everyone's definition of leadership is different, but redefining leadership is essentially what we're all set out to do. Make the world our own. Finding who you are is the best leadership role out there.
Last but not least, we have Rushel Sharon speaking about the importance of failure.
Failure is a fear. What is failure? Failure is a fear embedded in all people by society, but in reality, it is nothing to be afraid of. The stigma of failure is wired into society to the point where it's close to impossible to put an end to it. The fear of failure is not beneficial to anyone. On the other hand, it actually hurts people. In today's world, the fear of failure is put into place in order to force people to succeed. Surely that would have worked in an ideal world, but that's not the one we live in today. Failure is inevitable on the path to success. It is an experience that you must learn from and move forwards from afterwards. I'm sure all of you have heard of Thomas Edison, the genius inventor of the light bulb. You must know that he succeeded with the light bulb, but did you ever wonder how many times he must have failed? It is said Edison failed almost about 1,000 times before he invented the light bulb. And when he was asked about this, he said, "I didn't fail 1,000 times. The light bulb was an invention with 1,000 steps." Like Edison, many others have failed. Michael Jordan was cut from his high school basketball team, J.K. Rowling was homeless, and so many more famous personalities like Steve Jobs and Walt Disney also failed. I see all these people, and I feel better about myself. If I go by the definition of failure, in some ways, I would be one. I remember running for student council positions ever since 6th grade, and each and every year, I remember losing. 6th grade was the first time I ran for student council, and the only position available was homeroom representative, so that's what I ran for. I remember giving my short speech with a short slideshow that morning. I also remember not hearing my name when the winners were being announced. I was fine though, it was 6th grade. To be honest, I don't think I cared that much about what happened in 6th grade, so I let this loss slide. Then around 7th grade, I got a little more serious about school and extracurriculars. That's when I ran for vice president. And with certainty, I can say that this was one of the most fun, yet nerve-wracking experiences of my life so far. On the day of the elections, all the candidates had to give a speech to the entire student body. And I don't know if you can tell, but I love talking. I can go for hours if somebody doesn't stop me. But this was something else. Standing on stage in front of 700 people, telling them about yourself and what you're going to do, I'm pretty sure I might have skipped the whole paragraph of my speech. Then came around the end of the day, and results were in. As you may have guessed, I lost. Again. This one stung a little bit more, but I let it slide. I thought to myself, at least I had fun. Same thing happened in 8th grade. And as years passed, the losses stung more and more. But in 8th grade, something was different. I knew I had lost, but I was determined to turn this loss into a win. I ended up leading the community service committee, and after speaking to the advisors, I began working with the Children's Hospital in New Brunswick in order to hold a school-wide book drive. And guess what? I had finally successfully achieved something. We collected over 1,000 books and donated it to the hospital. I felt accomplished. I had forgotten the loss that I had faced, but at the same time, that is what pushed me to succeed. I felt I had the ability to make a difference, and that ability was not determined by my losses. Each failure shaped me. They built my character. With each failure, I learned something new, whether it be about myself or about running for student council. Each failure taught me about what it meant to win. You may not be understanding what I'm saying, so let me explain. Without failing, can you truly understand the feeling of winning? Would it mean that much to you? To me, it didn't. With each loss, the want for victory increased, and so did the effort. With each failure, I changed my campaigning strategy and changed my speech. Each failure served as a step to success that is yet to be achieved. I ran for student council in 9th and 10th grade too. And guess what? I lost. But that does not hold me back. Failure should hold nobody back. Failure is a vital step on a path to success. If people were afraid of failure, we wouldn't have the light bulb, Harry Potter, Disney, or even the iPhone. Use failure as a step forward, not a step back.
Thank you for listening to our speeches, and we hope you enjoyed them as much as we did. Our club members have worked extremely hard this year trying to find their voices and get their messages out there. So I wanted to say thank you to all our members for continuing to work diligently even through this difficult time. I want to especially thank the TED Ed headquarters for guiding us in this process and for giving us an endless amount of resources to make this all possible. Thank you.
With everything going on with the coronavirus pandemic and the Black Lives Matter movement, we couldn't go without saying a special thank you to those that are raising their voices on these issues, along with the thank you to those people that are working diligently to maintain a sense of normalcy in our lives. So thank you to all the small business owners that are staying open to provide for us.
We'd also like to thank all delivery workers who have been reaching out to the community and have been working so hard to get everyone the resources they need.
I'd like to thank the doctors who are risking their own lives to tirelessly work on the front lines.
We'd also like to thank nurses who are working tirelessly on the front lines to keep us safe.
Thank you to teachers for working diligently to make our distance learning experience easier.
I would also like to thank grocery store workers and any other essential workers for holding it down for our communities every single day.
I would like to take a minute to thank all of our first responders, our EMT, nurses, doctors, caretakers, and all the people serving on the front lines during this pandemic. We all truly appreciate and thank you for all the work you do. We appreciate you risking your lives to save ours. We thank you for being apart from your family so that we can be closer to ours. Your bravery and compassion helps carry our nation during these unprecedented times. So thank you.
Hi, my name is Anika Sinha and I'm a sophomore. I would like to say thank you so much for your bravery. It means so much to me that you're risking your life every single day to help your community members. Your knowledge and your bravery will get us through these harsh times. So thank you.
First responders for everything you do and for being so fearless and selfless and just brave about everything and for helping everyone to recover. And I hope you stay safe and healthy.
Thank you to all the first responders out there that are helping everyone and keeping this community together and safe.
I want to thank all the doctors, firefighters, and hospital workers for keeping the country safe and healthy throughout Corona. Thank you.
Thank you, healthcare providers, for everything you have done for my family and community. You have kept us safe and healthy for many months, and we are extremely grateful and lucky for your bravery and commitment. Your dedication and sacrifice is inspiring to me, and please know that we are keeping you in our prayers.
Thank you for being a hero and keeping us safe. We appreciate that you guys are risking your lives to save others. You guys are the real heroes.
From the bottom of my heart, I would like to thank all our first responders. You put your lives on the line for us every day, and we know it's not easy for you to do that. But you still do it. Thank you for always keeping us safe.
Hello, my name is Melissa Blevins, and I am the advisor of the Hillsborough High School TED Ed Club. And I wanted to thank you very much for watching our wonderful students and the speeches and not letting their hard work go unnoticed. Unfortunately, this isn't exactly how we envisioned our Borotalks event to go, but hey, at least they got to express their thoughts, to reach the masses and say what's really on their minds, and share all of the ideas that they have that are certainly worth spreading. I also wanted to extend my heartfelt thanks to all frontline workers, healthcare workers, EMS, police, fire, teachers, colleagues of my own, and anyone else who's put themselves in any harm's way, of course, in an effort to fight the COVID-19 pandemic. So thank you again, everybody, for watching, and stay safe, stay healthy, and have a great summer.